Hi, welcome to Service Learning 101, your guide to the essentials. This is the second video in the series of videos that we have produced to guide you through the essential elements of service learning pedagogy. For more information, contact the Thane Center for Service and Learning at Salt Lake Community College. For now, let's just start with an outline. So in our first video, we talked about historical context, contemporary relevant, and we began to define service learning. And now we're going to delve a little deeper, go into service learning a little more, and also specifically talk about community partnerships, critical thinking and structured reflection, and civic responsibility, one of the ultimate goals of service learning. Okay, so service learning. It's been identified as a high-impact practice and is one of several teaching and learning methods that have been proven beneficial for college students of all backgrounds. It's one of these 10 experiences, and it can also overlap a bit with some of these other experiences in that it impacts student writing via their reflection and student learning about diversity. Next, we'll define what service learning is and what service learning is not, because service learning is not volunteering. Volunteering is great. It's fabulous for the community, but it's not necessarily linked to academic content. Volunteering is the act of engaging in service that usually addresses an immediate social need, but does not necessarily address the conditions from which those needs emerge. This may be contrasted with service that actively fosters to seek social change and community cohesion. Usually, again, volunteering doesn't involve academic content. Service learning. So service learning, on the other hand, it not only addresses immediate social needs, but it looks at their systemic root causes. It also includes specific academic knowledge applied to community issues. And then it uses critical thinking and reflective strategies to tie course learning objectives to the service experience. And ideally, it generates sustainable solutions to complex issues. So, then service learning is not just a standalone volunteer experience. Service learning is an academic pedagogy, a method of learning. So just as you would integrate lecture, films, group projects, or research papers into your course, you integrate service learning as a teaching and learning tool. Service learning combines community service with academic instruction, focusing on critical reflection and personal and civic responsibility. This is a quote by the American Association of Community Colleges. Therefore, service learning is academic, pedagogical, and embedded. So let's go a little deeper into that. So service learning experiences, as we mentioned, they're tied to course learning objectives. Other essential elements are that service learning is designed to meet community identified needs, and it incorporates critical thinking and reflection. And then ultimately, in its ideal form, it contributes to students' interest in and understanding of community life, which is the civic engagement piece, or the civic responsibility piece. So, it's a method of teaching, as well as an ethos, a philosophy, and a pedagogy. It doesn't replace your curriculum, but enhances the concepts. So in practical terms, you must replace or repurpose existing assignments, the means by which you teach course outcomes to students, with service learning experiences, community partnerships, and critical reflection. Service learning grounds the discipline in relevant application. Some examples of this application are accounting students partnering to prepare taxes for low-income students, or technical writing students editing or creating a brochure or text for a nonprofit community organization. There are many who need this service. Maybe math students, tutoring elementary school students. This could happen in sociology or chemistry, any of these things. But chemistry students could also work with perhaps the Bureau of Land Management to assess the health of streams and soils. Just brainstorm for a minute and think about how can you use service learning and service in your class to teach course content. All right, research. So, research tells us that service learning has a positive effect on a student's life. Some examples include achieving course outcomes and the application of knowledge and the demonstrated complexity of understanding and problem analysis, cognitive development. In addition, it has impact on a student's sense of social responsibility, spiritual growth, and career development. The link to this research is here on the bottom right-hand side of the screen if you're interested in looking at that a little bit more. All right, reciprocal community partnerships. In service learning pedagogy, community partners play an essential role because without them, we would lack service opportunities. And with community partners, there's a few key points to remember. First and foremost, the mission and work of a community partner organization is tied directly to course learning objectives. And working in partnership with others to address community needs teaches students what they otherwise would have learned only in the classroom. So it's an experiential teaching and learning technique where the communities are living text and they're not just mere labs or placement sites. You see community partners as co-educators in this role. You have to give up a little bit of control. And you move from sage on the stage to guide on the side. Okay, identifying community partners. So you must select organizations or guide your students to select organizations that meet your course learning objectives. The mission of the organization, the population they serve, the projects your students are engaged in, or all these considerations should speak to your learning outcomes. So, you match the skills that your students are developing to an unmet community identified need. You also match that knowledge, the knowledge of your discipline, to this unmet community identified need. And then, of course, as we've mentioned, you match those learning outcomes to an experience in the community. And below is an example of that. All right, critical thinking and reflection. So reflection ensures that learning happens from the service. Service learning is a reflective pedagogy. And reflection is very important. So students must reflect on their service in order to impact the academic experience. Service learning requires structured opportunities for students to critically examine their experience and reflect on course content. Faculty-led reflection guides students to make meaningful connections between their community experience and course learning outcomes. So again, reflection is the learning aspect of service learning. And of course, there are some essential elements to student reflections. So first and foremost, you need the service work to be connected to course content and to the academic discipline, because this is the key aspect of how service learning helps students learn course content as you link the service. And you want students to examine social issues related to the experience. And then reflection helps students find personal relevance in the work and take ownership of their learning. And then, of course, finally, we want students to enhance their development of universal civic skills. So this can happen on a continuum, and it's developmental. So one continuum, one framework that you can use is what, so what, and now what. First, the students reflect on the what. What just happened in the experience? This is often just a simple travelogue of the service experience, and sometimes students just stop here, which is why you want to create reflection prompts, because then you can guide students into deeper levels of thinking, like the so what. Why does this experience matter? Why is the organization important to the community? Why does it matter to the student, to the population, or why are they dealing with this issue? Why is it a matter of importance? And then the now what is really focused on, now what are you going to do with the information? What are you going to do about it? Like how has this experience changed systems or root causes, and how is the community impacted now or in the future? To frame it in a different way, think of the reflection continuum as a simple ABC 1, 2, 3. This helps students progressively move from a focus on themselves to increased perspective taking, to viewing things from a systemic global perspective. So, reflection should also be ongoing throughout the experience. So it should happen before the experience, which includes framing the service, providing context, and often uncovering preconceived assumptions. Then reflection should also happen during the experience, which includes problematizing, dialogue, troubleshooting with students, and if possible, you want to involve community partners in this. Really, you can involve community partners throughout it, but often it can happen during very seamlessly. And then you also want reflection to happen after the experience. This includes debriefing and guiding students to make connection with structured opportunities for them to articulate their own growth throughout the experience. So be sure to include many structured multiple reflection methods throughout the semester. Honor different learning styles because not all students love to write. So just think about this, and the Thain Center for Service and Learning can also help you with your reflection prompts and help you with critical reflection. So finally, let's discuss civic skills and responsibilities. Service learning is about civic engagement. It is important to teach students about being engaged citizens in their communities and their role in a democratic society. As a part of a service learning framework, students are taught how to be engaged in their communities in ways that impact sustainable change. Civic engagement can be defined as active participation in the public good of a community in an informed, committed, and constructive manner, with a focus on the common good. Now ask yourself, how can I get involved in service learning? Well, one way is to contact the Thain Center for Service and Learning, because we have a lot of things that we can do to help support faculty and administrators and help Salt Lake Community College along this path of achieving greater community engagement, which is one of our 4 core themes. And also, community engagement is one of our core elements of the general education student learning outcomes. So contact us. We would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching this, and thanks for joining us. Goodbye.